Welcome to My American Dream, a monthly program of Finlandia Foundation National. During this program series, we are interviewing Finnish entrepreneurs who have come to the U.S. chasing their American dream. Finlandia Foundation is a nonprofit philanthropic organization that was established in Pasadena, California in 1953 for the purpose of supporting and celebrating Finnish American heritage while maintaining ties to contemporary Finland. A major source of private funding for Finnish and Finnish American cultural activities, Finlandia Foundation awards grants and scholarships and sponsors a variety of programs, from concerts to book talks to webinars and online presentations like My American Dream. To finance the production of its programming, Finlandia Foundation relies on private donations. Please visit our website to find out how you can help.
Hi, welcome to the next episode of My American Dream. In this episode, I have the pleasure of welcoming an old friend of mine who has been in this country for a long time, and we'll have him tell a little bit about his story. So, Risto Miikkulainen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, pleasure to be here.
Good. Okay, so Risto, in your case at least, based on your name, one cannot make any mistakes of where you are from. But tell us a little bit more. Where from Finland are you? Where did you grow up and study and some interesting stuff like that?
Yeah, I grew up in Helsinki, in the eastern part of Helsinki, Marjaniemi, and went to school there, and also to University of Technology, Helsinki University of Technology, as it was called at the time. Now it's Aalto University. And then for my PhD, I came to the US, to UCLA.
Yeah. So when you studied at the now Aalto University, what department, what stuff did you focus on?
At the time, there actually was no computer science department. There was a department of technical physics, and that's where I went. And I studied applied mathematics, and a lot of it had to do with computing. Only later, the computer science department was established, but much of the background was mathematical computing. Okay.
And when you graduated from Aalto, did you at that point of time sort of decide to go to the US, or were you hanging around, or sort of how did that transition happen for you?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, we got started in a systems analysis laboratory, as it was called at the time, on various research projects, which was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And also, they were interested in artificial intelligence there, and we took a couple of courses and read some books about it, textbooks, and that was something I really wanted to do. And at the time, as still, US is the place to be if you want to do AI. There's much more global artificial intelligence research right now, but at the time it was clearly the center. So even before I graduated, I applied to get to a PhD program in the US and in a couple of places, and I was accepted. So I came here almost directly after finishing at Aalto.
Okay, so in sort of line with what this show is called, was that your American dream, to come and do your PhD in the States?
Well, I had to actually really think about it, what it felt. It was so long ago. But as I said, we had a really nice research group, and the student union, student group where we were part of still exists and occasionally meets, and that was really a place I didn't want to leave. So I had originally planned to come to UCLA and be there during the winter and the semesters, and then come back to Helsinki and Finland for the summers and enjoy the summers in Finland. But of course you get so hooked with what you're doing and you can't leave it. So I've only been able to make trips. But this is actually an important point, that I still feel like my home is in Finland, and I'm just on a long trip. And I occasionally go back home, change the clothes and then come back here and continue the trip. But my home is in Finland, even though my whole career has been here. And so it's become a dream, sort of gradually, to focus on science and do it where the resources and the possibilities are the best in the world. And I've been really lucky that I've been able to pursue that and I think get there. Of course, it's not done yet, but that's the dream, and that continues.
Yeah. So now after such a long time in the sort of really top level research environment as you have been here in the States, and I know that you also have stayed in touch with what's going on in Finland. How do you see the level sort of at your level of research in your area? Sort of if you compare what they're doing and what's going on in Finland and what's going on here in the US.
Well, the research in Finland is absolutely top notch. I mean, it is just at the same level of quality, and there's a lot of very influential papers, research projects that come out that everybody knows about in this field. And we're talking about artificial intelligence, in particular machine learning. The current machine learning is based on neural networks, deep learning, that area. And it's been a long time building up. I mean, it started at the time when I was there, and all these couple of decades, there's been investment made in it, and some really good people have been given resources, so they build up a really good community in Finland, and it's well known around the world. People from US go to Finland sometimes to join these research groups when the research match is really good. So I think it's a really happy story in that sense.
Okay, that's great. So now we have mentioned a few terms here that might not be that familiar to all of our viewers, like machine learning, artificial intelligence, neural networks. Can you give us all a 2-minute crash course on what artificial intelligence is? First, what it is, and then why should we care? What is it used for?
So one definition for artificial intelligence is that it's trying to get computers to do what humans do really well already. So computers do really well on payroll, for instance, and calculations like that. And humans are really good at understanding language and the visual world and motion and all kinds of manipulation. And that's what we're trying to get the machines to do, AI. And that's a very broad definition. We actually, in my AI course, we spend pretty much half of the first lecture class meeting on just trying to define what AI is. But I think that's as good a definition as any. Now, it's become, over the last few decades, it's become much more practical. Since the 50s, people have tried to do things like this, get computers to play games, understand language, understand the visual world. And it's been very difficult. Famously, Marvin Minsky gave a summer project to somebody to figure out the vision. And we still don't quite have that figured out. It's much harder than anybody thought. Because it's so easy for humans to do. We don't understand how hard it is to get the computers to do it. Now, one thing that changed in the last 10 years or so was that so much more computing power is available now than there ever was in the early days of AI. And the ideas that we had in the 90s, when I started at UCLA, we had neural networks, machines that are built to emulate what happens in the brain, how the brain processes information. And at the time, that was revolutionary because most of the AI up to that point had been writing code, writing symbolic programs that move symbols around. This was a new perspective that you don't actually code what you want the machine to do. You make the machine learn the behavior you want it to do. But in the 90s, we just didn't have enough compute to do it. The ideas were good, but we didn't have enough. Now we do, 1 million times more compute than we had in the 90s, and also data. And now we can look at millions or hundreds of millions or billions of tokens of images or words in a text, and learn regularities in those images and text documents. And then from there, learn to recognize images, learn to understand language, and so on. And that's what AI is today.
Great. That's a very good, concise explanation to somebody like me who actually knows a little bit about it, but not too much. You actually know really a lot about it because for the last, I don't know how many years, you can tell that, but you have been the professor at the University Texas at Austin, which is why we actually should be sitting in the same room and not in separate rooms at this point. But so tell us about when did you get into UT Austin and what do you teach? What do you do there?
Yeah, so at the time when I graduated in 1990 from UCLA, like I said, that was the highlight of neural network excitement. So it was possible to get academic jobs then. So I applied and I got the job at UT Austin, which is one of the top-ranked AI and computer science universities in the world, and that was really great. But it's been a long journey. There was an AI winter between that and where we are now. In the 2000s or so, and we only recently, in the last 10 years, have been growing a lot in this area. But throughout that time, since the 1990s, I've been teaching artificial intelligence and neural networks. These topics that have always been close to my heart. Also cognitive science, which is very similar to AI, except that we also look at people, humans, and try to understand how humans process information. It's a really good motivator for building intelligent machines is to first understand how people process information.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky that I've been able to teach all of those courses, and it's interesting that at one point it was difficult to get enough students in the class to teach it because it was not popular. And now we just have to turn people away by the dozen because we can't handle all of those. But we are hiring more people who are in the same area, so the capacity is growing. And it's interesting that at the moment, more than half the applicants who apply for computer science, they want to do artificial intelligence. So there's a really strong interest in it now, and it's becoming. And this is a little different. If I'm going to continue just a little bit, that the academic world at the time, 1990s, and for a long time, was very different from the rest of the world, like the business and industry. And that's different now. The academia and the industry, they work together. They go to the same conferences, they publish papers, and you can move back and forth. So the real world is a lot closer now to academia than before. And that's really different from when I started, and I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's of course really visible in that for somebody who is not in the academia but on the business side, that have been involved and know of lots of projects that have happened sort of between businesses and their research departments and the universities to target that at sort of specific and types of research or coming up with something focused like that. So you actually have sort of crossed that border yourself a few times because you have been involved in startups and currently you are working with a very large company in this area. So. Anything you can tell us about that in terms of general interest?
Yes, absolutely. It's really a world of its own. Like I said, research-wise, currently academic research in startup, research in bigger companies, they're all in the same community. But startups are a little different, and industry setting is a little different than. It's been a learning experience. So we started a small company because everybody is starting companies, and it's an opportunity to do something different and also try to change the world. But it's very difficult, and it's a different kind of skill that's required. So if you come from academia, you have to have good partners, people who understand the startup world, understand how to start a company, lead it, and grow it, and take it to the market and all that, which academics generally don't know much about. And I was lucky to have some such collaborators. And so we started with a very small company, just 3 people, and we built a prototype and then got acquired and into a bigger startup, which then got acquired to a really big company, Cognizant, where I'm now, Cognizant Technology Solutions. It's 300,000 people. And we are a startup now within that big company. So it feels like a startup again. And that I think is interesting, that these big companies let these internal startups happen. It's difficult to encourage innovation, and startups are a very good way of doing that. When people get excited about what they do and it's their thing, and they go at great lengths, they're very creative, and encouraging that inside a big company is a very difficult and interesting model, but that's what we're doing now. So I'm doing research and Cognizant. We have our own team, Evolutionary AI research team, or Cognizant AI Labs. And we have our own office in San Francisco, and that's just us. It's like a startup unit, relatively small. And we hope that now we have the big company backing to grow it, to get to the customers. It's much easier if you have something like that. And that's the goal. Take this technology, AI, and actually take it to the world. It's very difficult, but if you have a company that can actually get to the customers and support it from multiple aspects, not just the technology, but actually seeing it through and maintaining and all that, then I think it could be successful, and that's the path we are on, I hope.
Okay, that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, one of the trends, of course, that you sort of touch on here, and I've been involved in myself very much, is these big companies buying small companies, because the big companies in many cases have to a certain extent lost the ability to innovate, and they are sort of trying to buy innovation capability and capacity by buying these small companies. Which then in itself is a real art of how to keep these small innovative companies close enough so that you can get sort of the value out of them, but far away enough so that you don't stifle or sort of kill the innovation that you bought in the first place. But that's a different story. One thing of interest here, of course, given again our Finnish theme here, is to just get a sense from you of you now having been here in this country for such a long time, but you are definitely Finnish we speak Finnish, not English normally, and all of that. But in terms of just your personality, your gene pool, the way you do things, and all of that. How do you see that differing from maybe some of your colleagues, or do you think that you have been very much influenced by the culture here in this country of doing things? And have you changed? Haven't you changed? What are some of the sort of things that sticks out in that kind of a broad area that I'm trying to cover here?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And initially, being new here and trying to make it, I, like many people, they try to assimilate as well as possible, try to learn how to do things the way they are done here. And that's a very steep learning curve. It's quite difficult, but also US is so diverse. It's not just one culture, there are multiple cultures. And academic world in particular is so diverse. So it's not really just one culture, but understanding the diversity of it. And that is then what changed eventually, not even that, it didn't even take that long to understand that you have your own unique contribution, like everybody else. People who come from India, from China, from various parts of the world, they have their own culture and their own kind of contributions, and we have our own. And it's actually the richness is to keep it and maintain it and take advantage of it and not try to become like somebody else. So that was a important realization, and I think it works very well. We have distinct differences and a lot to offer, and that I think is a strength. When you build a team, you want to have people of different kinds, and certainly the Finnish culture, people who can bring it in, can contribute.
Yeah, yeah. So, of course, Finns are known or would like to be known for their sisu as being one of the things that we have. We have the perseverance and the grit to do stuff and so forth. But again, I think that one of the things that I would say is a fairly strong sort of Finnish feature is sort of, to some extent, sort of simplicity and clarity and sort of generally a logical way of thinking through things. Not to say that there wouldn't be lots of creativity and artistry in the Finnish culture, but still that there is this logical, simplistic thing. Is that something that you would concur with, and is that something that you think sort of serves you well in what you do in terms of really being in at the top level of research in computer science and AI?
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I think it's true, and expand on that a little bit. It's elegance. It's no frills. It's the functionality that when you build something, it serves its function, and not necessarily. You don't necessarily add all kinds of bells and whistles that are not important. That serves you well if you're an engineer. You focus on what matters. And you get it done, and you don't necessarily try to make it flashy so that it catches an eye of somebody who doesn't understand what's underneath, but you make it work really well. And that, I think, comes through in a lot of these startups that are Finnish startups, and a lot of these products and designs and innovations, that they actually work. And they work in a simple, logical manner, instead of trying to get around things, instead of trying to hide things and so on. There's another aspect of it, and that's then marketing. And Finns are not necessarily always that great at that aspect. Even if you have something really great, the attitude is often build it and they will come. And that's not really true. You have to go out and you have to talk about it, you have to advertise it, you have to be proud of it. And that's something that after living here for so long, I've tried to learn and hopefully can communicate back to Finland, to people in academia and business, that this is something that maybe doesn't come so naturally because you focus on the functionality and the bottom line, making things work. But there's also a side that is required, letting people know about it. So there are both sides, but that's certainly one of the main advantages. And in my line of work, it certainly comes out when you look at the designs and what they're made of.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, again, in my line of work, I've seen a tremendous development over the past 10, 20 years in terms of the startups and the companies that have come from Finland, because they really used to be so focused on just some functionality, something that can be done in a nice and clean and elegant way, but they didn't spend enough time figuring out if anybody cares. Is this something that somebody actually will use or needs to use? Do we have lots of great solutions looking for a problem to solve, or not? And again, 20 years ago, that looked very different than what it looks like today, because I see sort of these Finnish companies today being really complete packages rather than only the engine room that it used to be to a large extent.
Yeah,
but,
sometimes.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Just continue on that. That sometimes when we are looking at companies, even now being part of a bigger company, we're looking at what to acquire, and there's a lot of companies that are just hot air. A lot of marketing, but when you really dive in, there's nothing there. And Finnish startups are often the other way around. You can tell that if it's a Finnish company, there's substance, there's elegance, there's a solution that really works, but the presentation sometimes lacking. So you really have to dig into it to understand what the value is. That's certainly a better foundation to build on, but there is something to be built on top of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, you have two kids, and they have. I guess that they're both born in the States, right? And
Yes.
so they have lived their entire life here. Are they American or are they Finnish? Or do you care, or are you trying to impact it?
Well, we certainly try to make sure that they feel like they are at least partly Finnish, that they have a Finnish heritage and they are at home in Finland and in Finnish culture. So we read a lot of Moomi books when they were kids. And well, of course, we have video chats with grandparents every week. And we go certainly to Finland and spend time there. But it is also, this is their world. When at one point my younger daughter was in preschool and they asked everybody to write something in their home language. Turned out there were 15 kids in that room and 15 different home languages.
Wow.
So it is a lot easier to maintain your identity when everybody else also has their own identity. Well, they were the only Finnish people, but there were also other Finns around, certainly. So it's part of the richness is to understand where you're coming from and what your background is, and then put it into perspective of everything else that's around. So we speak Finnish at home, or try to. Of course, it's quite a challenge, but we try to encourage that the kids read. Whenever I go to the library and pick a bunch of books for the kids, I require that before I go, they read one book in Finnish. Maintain. It takes a little bit of extra effort to keep that going, but just the other day I did ask both of them independently, are you Finnish? Are you American? If somebody asked, what do you say? And they said they are Finnish. So I was really proud.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's a very positive sort of note to leave this at. I think that it's we're in a similar situation. Also very proud of having a kid that speaks Finnish and follows Finland in the ice hockey tournaments and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that's of course what this program is about, is to have show the linkage, the value of it, and the fact that it actually takes place. Mm-hmm. And so with that, Risto, I thank you very much for your time. Super interesting topic to discuss, and I know that we will have many of these discussions going forward on similar things.
Yeah. May I add one more?
Yeah.
May I add one more? Yeah. So
absolutely.
But yeah. So one way to look at this, where we are and what we are doing and how we are Finnish now, is that our grandparents' generation, they built the independent Finland. Our parents' generation built the country that was industrialized country, and also after the World War they built it. Now we are making an international country. We are part of Finland, even though we are not there. We are part of the world, and that's our role, making Finland part of the world and contribute to it. And I think that's an exciting mission.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Very good. Thank you, Risto, a bunch, and to all of you in front of your screens, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next time with another exciting episode of My American Dream. Thanks.